こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、スポルティング、守田英正のリーズユナイテッドへの移籍の噂に関する動画です。リーズファンのチャンネルである、リーズレートリーでは、その移籍の噂についてリアクションしています。攻撃的ミッドフィールダーとして、ボックストゥボックスのミッドフィールダーとして、スタッツを見ながら、どういう選手であるのかを分析しつつ、30歳といえども、リーズにとって良い補強になるだろうと話しています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
Today's video is sponsored by me. If you head down to the link in the description below, you'll find a link to my Etsy page where I will be selling Leeds United prints, this being one of them, the Marching On Together print. This is available with a white background as well, with different coloured stripes. And then there's also some other ones there, Leeds Legends print and Champions Again print, and there'll be more added in due course. If you don't make a purchase, still go over there. Make sure you go and like the shop. That would really help me out. Tries to push me up in the Etsy algorithm. That would be great. Thanks for your time. Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Before we get into another transfer video, make sure you go and hit that big red button down below because it really helps me out. We are getting into the transfer rumours at the moment, and today's is about a central midfielder. Now, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago in a video about how we kind of needed to have somebody like a Joe Rothwell, but I think we can do better in terms of, I like Joe Rothwell, but I think if you wanting to stay up in the Premier League, you wanting to have a bit more ambition, then there is definitely some other players that you can look at. Now, this transfer that we've been linked with kind of goes against the previous ownership's transfer policy, which was to buy a lot of players with resale value, young players with resale value. But now Hidemasa Morita, who plays for Sporting Lisbon, has just turned 30 at time of recording, so that is Monday the 12th. He is 30 years old and 2 days. So the Japanese central midfielder, like I said, plays for Sporting Lisbon in the Premier League in Portugal and also in the Champions League for them this season as well. Over the course of this season, he has got 2 goals and 3 assists. So not a massive amount, but from his position of central midfielder, kind of box-to-box midfielder, that's actually not too bad of a return, which we'll see in a second when we get into those statistics. Now, Hidemasa Morita, being 30 years old, contract expires next year, so he's only got 1 year left on his current contract. He is rumoured to be around 15 million euros for the 30-year-old. Now, obviously, we know that players could probably play well into their mid-30s nowadays, and Hidemasa Morita, if you sign him on a 3-year deal, I think you've still got a very good player for a decent amount of time. 15 million euros, probably around 15 to 20 million pounds, depending, because obviously with 1 year left on his contract, you might get that a little bit cheaper if he's not willing to sign on again, and it might be his last chance to get a move to the Premier League. So you can see why it might be quite appealing for him. But Morita as well, who obviously will have played in the Japanese national team with Ao Tanaka, seems like a good option to go for, because whilst he primarily plays in central midfield as a kind of box-to-box number 8 midfielder, he can play in the defensive midfield role as well, and is somebody who definitely kind of fits that mould that we had with Joe Rothwell. And it's something that I think, like I said, is a bit of a change of tack from the ownership and from the recruitment, because if it is a true rumour, of course it's links fly around all over the place. It might not necessarily be true, but I would imagine he's on the list somewhere at the club. He is somebody who kind of fits that mould. Like I said, he's only got three or four goals this season, but in terms of non-penalty goals this season, 0.14 per 90 for his position as a central midfielder actually puts him in the 86th percentile, so the top 14% compared to positional peers in the men's next 14 competitions, i.e., so I think it's compared to like the Belgian league, the Dutch league, and all those leagues that are kind of not the top 5 leagues, but the ones after that. So he's way up there in terms of who he's compared to. It doesn't take a massive amount of shots. He's only in the 49th percentile with that for just under 1 shot per game. But his assists, 0.21 per 90, puts him in the 93rd percentile, so the top 7%. And one thing I did want to talk about is his shot creating actions. From a central midfielder, he creates 3.35 shot creating actions per 90, which again puts him in the top 14% in those next 14 competitions. So his shot creating actions are, again, just a way of testing how involved is he in creating chances to shoot on goal. And he's very involved. Someone who's a central midfielder, he's definitely getting forward and getting in the box and stuff as well. His pass completion, 84.6%, but we always say that quote from Tony Kroos where he talked about anyone with a low pass, really high pass completion isn't taking enough risks, essentially, to paraphrase him. So he's 84.6% in the 66th percentile. But then when you look at his next statistic, that makes sense as to why he's doing that, because he plays a lot of progressive passes. Now, progressive passes are passes that move towards the opposition's goal line by at least 10 yards from its furthest point in the last 6 passes. So essentially, is he playing the ball forward or is he playing sideways and backwards? And if with 7.4 progressive passes per 90, that puts him in the 90th percentile, so the top 10% of those midfielders who try to play the ball forward. Morita is way up there for that, so that's really good for him as well. Another test of kind of how involved he is in the attacking play and how far forward he gets is his touches in the attacking penalty area and his progressive passes received, whether he's on the end of those passes that are going forward towards goal. So touches in the attacking penalty area, 2.3 per 90, puts him in the top 6% of those leagues. And progressive passes received, 2.86, so that puts him in the top 23%, him being in the 77th percentile. So those are really good statistics for somebody who you're saying, okay, well, you're a central midfielder, but are you helping out the forwards? And it seems like he definitely is as well. Tackles, 2.37 per 90, puts him in the 64th percentile, so just above average for that. And aerials, one for somebody who is only in the mid 5 feet range. Aerials won 1.33 per 90, which puts him in the 72nd percentile, so pretty good. In terms of players that he would be compared to in terms of his statistics, let's say that there's not necessarily any household names, but people like Jordi Schouten from Eindhoven, Marcelino Nunez from Norwich, Frederick Auersnes from Benfica as well. So there's some kind of under the radar but good players that he's being compared to. So it's important to recognise that he's pretty much up there with some of those really good players in the business. Like I said, the Japanese central midfielder currently at Sporting Lisbon. So I think that is quite an important thing to mention, what I said before about the ability for it to be kind of his last chance to play in the Premier League. He's won the Portuguese Championship once, he's won the Japanese Championship twice, he's won the Japanese Cup, he's won the Japanese League Cup, he's won the Japanese Super Cup, he's won a lot of competitions. And so I think at this point in terms of his career, I think a move to the Premier League would be great for him. Let me know what you think, whether you think he's too old, because whilst him being 30 is okay, well, you've not got as much longevity, you've not got as much resale value, you're essentially kind of committing to losing that $15 million euros/pounds. You are almost kind of getting that back if you are to save yourself in the division, if you are to manage to stay up with somebody like Morita's experience that he has playing in the Japanese league and the Portuguese league. You do kind of feel like it's worth it for some players to have a bit of strength in experience. And I think when we talked about the kind of spine that we need to build of this team, I think you need a goalkeeper who's probably 30 or in his early 30s, or late 20s at least, and you probably need a central midfielder of that around that age. Rothwell's around that age as well, so even if you were to sign Rothwell permanently, you're kind of getting a similar age of player. So I don't think it's way out the box to say changing transfer tactics slightly to get in older players. Even then, he's not that old, he's only 30. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I think Hidemasa Morita is a player who would be very good for us. And like I said in the video, the tactics video from Saturday, sometimes we're going to have to play somebody like Morita, who's a box-to-box midfielder, against, I don't know, let's say one of the other newly promoted sides, Burnley or whatever. But if you were playing against, I don't know, Man City, you might want Ampadu and Gruev in there, or Ampadu and Tanaka, for example, to play a more kind of defensive, solid role. But you have the option there with somebody like Morita. So let me know what you think of Hidemasa, Morita, and the rumoured transfer to Leeds down in the comments below. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately, and I'll see you in the next one.
次は解説です。英語はかなり聞き取りやすく、難しいボキャブラリーもほとんどありませんでした。解説部分も少し短く、簡単なものになってしまっていますが、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。And there'll be more added in due course.
in due course は、よく使われる時間表現の一つで、適切な時期に、叱るべき時に、やがてという意味があります。今すぐには起こらないけれど、自然なタイミングや必要なプロセスを経た後に起こることを指します。似た表現に、in time やイベンチュアリーなどがありますが、in due course は特にフォーマルで控えめな印象を与えます。メール、発表、ビジネス報告などに最適です。
And there'll be more added in due course. And there'll be more added in due course. It is a bit of a change of tack from
タックは一見シンプルな単語に見えますが、使い方によっては高度な意味を持ちます。基本的には画鋲や留め具を指す名詞ですが、ビジネスや会話では方針ややり方の意味でよく使われ、ディファレントタックといえば別のアプローチといった意味になります。また、船の操縦で使われる航海用語にも由来していて、方向転換するという意味でも使われます。抽象的な意味があるので、議論やプレゼンの戦略を説明するときに非常に便利な表現なので、聞いたときに一発で意味をつかめるよう、複数の意味を意識しておきましょう。
It is a bit of a change of tack. It is a bit of a change of tack from the top 14% compared to positional peers.
ピアは複数の意味を持つ重要な単語です。最もよく使われるのは同じ立場の人や同僚という意味で、学校や職場でのピアレビューやピアサポートのような言い回しでも頻繁に登場します。一方で、じっと見る、覗き込むという動詞の使い方もよくあり、さらに、イギリスでは正式に爵位を持つ貴族を意味することもあるなど、文脈をしっかり見ないと誤解しやすい単語です。話し言葉と書き言葉の両方で登場する語彙なので、柔軟な理解が求められます。
The top 14% compared to positional peers. The top 14% compared to positional peers. That makes sense as to why he's doing that.
as to why は、なぜ何々なのかについてという意味で、疑問や理由を丁寧に紹介するフレーズです。この表現は、会議、メール、報告書など、ややフォーマルな場面でよく使われます。why だけではなく、as to how や as to when などとバリエーションも豊富にあり、文法的には as to プラス疑問詞の形で覚えておくと便利です。as to をつけずに why だけでも同じ意味で使えることも多いですが、as to を加えることによって、その理由にフォーカスしたようなニュアンスやフォーマルさを与えることになります。上級者向けの表現ですが、理由を明確に伝える際にはとても役立つ表現です。
That makes sense as to why he's doing that. That makes sense as to why he's doing that. Let's say that there's not necessarily any household names.
ハウスオールドネームは直訳すると家庭の名前ですが、実際には誰でも知っているような有名人やブランドという意味で使われます。例えば、She's a household name in the UK といえば、彼女はイギリスで誰でも知っている有名人だという意味になります。この表現の面白いところは、家の中で話題にされるほど当たり前に知られているというニュアンスを含んでいることです。主に芸能人、アスリート、政治家、有名企業などに使われます。会話でもニュース記事でもよく使われるため、知っておくと表現の幅が広がる便利なフレーズです。
Let's say that there's not necessarily any household names. Let's say that there's not necessarily any household names.
いかがでしたか？守田英正については、スタッツを見ると大きく目立つようなものではなさそうですが、守田の良さも目に見えないところが多いのではないかとも思いますし、特にポジショニングなどについて優劣がわかるような指標やデータはないのかなと疑問に思います。それでも、パス成功率のデータを見て話すような動画され日本ではほとんどなく、パスの回数や成功率だけでなく、プログレッシブパスやボックス内でのタッチ数、プログレッシブパスの受けた回数などを見て、中盤の選手の中でも攻撃的な選手である根拠とし、 どういう選手と比べられるのかを話すような動画は、参考にもなり、個人的に面白いと思う動画です。やはり30歳という年齢が一番のハードルのようにも感じますが、昇格組のチームにとっては、ベテラン選手が最も必要とされるチームでもあるでしょうし、実際には、どのチームに行っても、期待を超えるようなプレーができるだろうと思います。昇格チームのリーズとはいえども、プレミアリーグでプレーする価値も、守田自身にとっても十分に高いものだとも想像できますので、守田がどのような決断をするのか、楽しみにしながら、移籍の話を追っていきたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。